Okay, thank you for the introduction. Throwing a curveball at you guys to see if y'all are still awake here in the afternoon. Y'all been listening to a lot of herp information, and I'm actually a pachyderm keeper here at the local zoo. So, surprise. We are going to talk about how we are moving from international pachyderm work into more localized backyard kind of projects. But this is me and the start of our organization, the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund. This is me in Nepal when I ran from elephants. This is a little bitty nerd that was into elephants and climbed a fence and got a little bit too close. And this is what happens to those little nerds when they grow up. So this is me with Mimi at the local zoo working with elephants. So I've been here in town about 25 years, guys, working with these guys. But Katie was one of our Zoo Explorer Scouts. She started working with me at 13 years old, and when she was at CSU getting her wildlife biology degree, she passed away from a Ewing sarcoma. And so we went to her parents and said we would like to do something in her honor, and so we created the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund. And what we've been doing, just to give you some background, with these species that I work with, we built a wildlife vet hospital in Chitwan National Park. So these guys actually, we've got vets and vet techs and researchers that all work out of Chitwan there in Sorha, including working with a lot of the native fauna and rescuing some of these Indian rock pythons that get turned in and then releasing them back to the wild. So, and Keith was one of my Zoo Explorer Scouts, and he climbed Kilimanjaro with me for elephants and black rhinos back in 2016. He was working in tropical discovery. He's one of my explorers and a TD intern. And he said, hey, Dave, I love what you're doing. You love rhinos and elephants, and they need our help, but you really ought to look at some of the smaller species. You really need to look at some of the amphibians that are going extinct and research this chytrid fungus and find out what's going on, because I'd really like to help out. So that led us to doing some work in Ecuador with Wakiri and getting some of the native frog species from Ecuador into some areas to where they could be tested for chytrid fungus and maybe keep almost like an arc of saving some of these frogs. So actually got to send Keith down a couple times to Ecuador to work. And so I guess a lot of my presentation is going to be about teaching an old dog new tricks, that there is more out there than just elephants and rhinos, and that we should be working with them. So down on the Osa Peninsula, down in Costa Rica, we started working with sea turtles, and this is a nursery of sea turtles. So we started getting into some reptile work, and down with these guys, and this is us with nests of hawksbills and olive ridleys. We were measuring and weighing these turtles, took a group of 12 down, because what we do is really try to get people involved, not just donors with money, but actually get people to go and get their hands dirty. Get people that want to go and work with us down there. And that's us with the little olive ridley turtle. So this was my first kind of work with some of these species. This is a bucket of hawksbills, which is really cool to see. Very endangered sea turtle. They are much faster than the olive ridleys, and if I butcher any reptile or amphibian information, please don't throw tomatoes at me. Remember my background, big mammals. So these hawksbills, though, they actually are longer in the egg on these nests in Costa Rica. So when I would release these, they would motor into the water and just blow away all of the little olive ridleys. It was pretty amazing to watch. So we were betting margaritas on who would win. Like I said, we like to have fun when we do conservation. But that's us, and that's pretty special to take a group of 12 down to release. I never thought I'd get to do this before, and I think it took about 3 releases before I quit, like tearing up on the beach and being mad at all the hawks and every bird that was trying to eat these little guys when we let them go. But kind of our first delving into conservation. We also work with jaguars down there, and sometimes the animals that you work with clash. I don't want y'all to run out of the room crying, but that is the head of the sea turtle that was removed by Maria, one of our jaguars. We were donating camera traps there. We went down and backpacked into this jaguar center. Me and Anton, who also works at the zoo, and we donated camera traps and equipment to this. So we were there when all these females were nesting, and all the jaguars that they're working with for their studies. They know them all by their spot patterns. So Maria was eating this turtle. We did not see her on the beach. I would have loved to, but seeing all these females come to nest was pretty awesome. And so this led me to working with some local guys on herps. You might recognize Sean and Brendan. I went with them last summer, and they had pit tagged some rattlesnakes and were releasing them down near where I live. So I thought this was really cool. Brendan was also a Zoo Explorer Scout with me, still is, but is actually working in tropical discovery now. So this was pretty exciting for me to get invited. I felt like one of the cool kids that got invited to do some snake stuff. But that was pretty awesome. And what that has led with the sea turtles and this local rattlesnake work, it's led us to really want to do more. And we're kind of reverse engineering our conservation map. So we started off in Nepal and Tanzania with all this pachyderm stuff. And now we're wanting to get more engaged with local conservation. So I wanted to listen to the northern leopard frog talk. So I came back in because Dr. Mickey McComb-Kobza is one of our partners out of Boulder at Ocean First Institute, and we're going to work with her on some northern leopard frog stuff. And we've been helping her with her great white shark studies. Me and Mickey spoke up in Vail together, so we had her as one of our speakers, and we were helping her tag great whites. I actually got to call my brother last year in April and tell him and my niece and nephew to please not go swimming. They live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and every great white that had been tagged was right off the coast of North Carolina. So having insider information like that was awesome. Go to the beach and watch people swim, but don't get in the water. So we're trying to get some citizen science type projects going on here. So with things like the northern leopard frog. We also now are moving into some of the herp initiatives at some of the places that we already work. So in Nepal, we work with tiger studies. We work with elephant researchers. We have a big component in human-wildlife conflict. So we're doing beehive fences. We're doing camera traps as part of a tiger study to see how tigers are moving out of some of these protected areas where they're killing about 15 people a year in Nepal. And Kamal Devkota is a snake biologist, and he reached out to us and said, you're really so active in Nepal with all these really big species, but venomous snakes are killing like over 300 people a year. And if you really want to work with human-wildlife conflict, why don't you help me? And so he made a really good point. And so we started funding. We gave him $1,000 for his education material about teaching them about venomous snakes and how to live with them a little bit better. So kind of what they're doing in here, catching rattlesnakes in people's backyards, pit tagging them, releasing them, kind of what we're trying to do in Nepal as well. We also are working with gharial. So if you're a crocodilian fan, probably didn't have a talk on gharials today, did you? Yeah, so I've got some gharial pictures there for you. And we're working with a group there, and they're having Croc Fest for us that we're helping to sponsor in November. So we're going back for the Elephant Health Camp, we're going for a King Cobra class, and we're going to Croc Fest. So yeah, if anybody likes to travel and have fun, this is what we're going to do in November. And every year we get to see these guys, and they're trying to get gharial numbers back up, but I think there's like 2% success rate that they're having with releasing these guys, and a lot of them get washed right down and populate India, and they don't come back up to Nepal. So a really interesting crocodilian species to get to see every time we go over there. Our fund is growing, and I look to retire in June, so I got 4 more months shoveling poop, and I'm going to be 55, and I don't have to use my back anymore, and I'll be able to do this hopefully full time. But since 2014, our fund has brought in about $2 million with a growing backdrop of thank you. Appreciate it. It's been fun. As a zookeeper, we don't make enough to give $200 to conservation with our salary, but with a group of people, I think our newsletter, we've got about 900 people on our newsletter now. We just had Katie's Night event in December. We had 300 people show up. We made $70,000 in one night. So, and with that, we can help divvy things out to some of the amphibian and reptile studies that we really want to help with. This is our global footprint with the KACF. We've got 24 countries that we're now involved in. And if you've got a favorite species out there, if you've got a favorite country, if you've got a favorite researcher, maybe there's some synergy that we could work together and tie in local conservation with international conservation. That was kind of what I wanted to preach. This is what I drove today. We've got to deal with Pete Kia, and they let me put all of my kids' book animals on a rack, and they gave us this Nero for 2 years. So I really stand out now when I drive around town. Thought I was an animal nerd before, but now it's gotten pretty bad. So we do this, and I left a set of my children's books in the back. I've written 3 books. I've got a 4th one coming out, and we use those books. I go to schools and I teach. If you have any programs here, any teachers, any young kids, I go to schools on Tuesday and Wednesday, my weekends, and I teach about conservation with these kids. So that's Grover, and that is my quick talk to end y'all's day. So this is some of the things that I want to work on with you guys, and feel free to shoot me any non-amphibian reptile questions. I did not even attempt y'all's quiz. I would have butchered that. So anything y'all want to ask? Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.